It's absolutely paramount that if you have even a modicum of interest in this game and you have a PlayStation 5, you owe it to yourself to play the demo. This is a game with a very, very interesting and unique gameplay.
Where is the PC demo? This is a game I watched here before with the girl doing all the magic spells. There was no PC demo. What's going on?
Please play the demo. It's really going to give you an idea of the battle system of the game. It's going to give you some of the thematics, the soundtrack you're going to get an idea for, and the overall feel of the game. So that demo is available right now in the PlayStation Store. It's available for free. Go ahead and download that. Unfortunately, not available on PC for whatever reason. I wish they would just drop the demo. Square Enix does a great job in dropping demos for a lot of their games, but for some reason, they don't drop their demos often on PC, and it would be nice given that I'm sure this is a game that people want to know how it's actually going to perform on their specific PC depending on what kind of requirements they have. You guys get the idea. You've got a lot of different magical abilities to tinker around with, so that is going to be something you're going to have to test and utilize the magic that best fits specific scenarios, because there are some enemies that are going to be resistant to specific magic types, and then you're going to have to switch on the fly, and that gets pretty interesting when you are fighting a multitude of enemies, and one portion of the enemies are resistant to a specific magic type, the other portion of the enemies aren't, and you're constantly switching between magical abilities to utilize the abilities that are going to be effective against specific enemies. And when you're fighting several enemies at once, it gets pretty chaotic pretty quickly.
There are over 100 spells to wield in Forespoken, many of which appear genuinely exciting in gameplay trailers, but you're limited to an unexceptional select few in those first chapters. This can lead to early stretches feeling a bit one-note as you hold the trigger to fire chunks of rocks at enemies while occasionally dodging an attack. Once new unlocks start presenting themselves, however, it all becomes a whole bunch more interesting. I had fun mixing these standard spells with much more interesting support skills, such as conjuring roots from the ground to tie down enemies, and summoning a little plant turret friend to help out in sticky situations. All of these abilities belong to the Earth-based magic skill tree, one of 4 different elemental types you'll acquire over the course of the adventure. I do fear that being restricted to these fairly basic abilities for so much of the start of Forespoken isn't the best way to introduce its combat systems. While I've so far been unable to use them, I've seen glimpses of extensive skill trees, filled with bigger and better abilities that tease evolving and exciting gameplay. It's a battle system that does show genuine promise, and it left me with reasons to be excited about the possibilities of juggling different magic types and the effects combining spells can have on enemies. I'm holding out hope that it develops substantially and with greater speed, because in truth, there was sadly little else about Forespoken that held my attention.
There was also a lot of emphasis put onto the combat system particularly, and they wanted to make the magic look incredibly natural, noting we put a great deal of time and thought into how we visualize the spells in Forespoken. First and foremost, we wanted to stay away from having things like fire or rocks just suddenly appearing out of nowhere. While that certainly would have been fun and wouldn't have caused any issues, doing that felt too expected and boring, especially for a game so focused on magic. We decided that every spell would share a common rule. It would start with magic energy and transition into natural phenomena like the aforementioned fire and rocks. Then when the spell is cast, it would reverse back into magic energy before fading away. So they put a lot of attention to detail into the magical combat, and again, playing the demo gives you an idea. That combat is super vibrant, super flashy, and from a technical standpoint looks really, really good. And again, just really pops as far as making the gameplay look as flashy as possible. Like, if somebody that doesn't play video games comes into the room and watches the combat of Forespoken, I think they'll be taken aback into how flashy and vibrant everything looks. And they did a really good job with that, and you immediately get that idea when playing the demo. Experience how the break first affected the world.
This game looking pretty fun, though. I feel like this day and age, we focus too much on like what we want it to be and not what the game actually is. And I get it, you know, it's supposed to move forward with graphics and gameplay and blah blah blah. But like, embrace the game, enjoy the game. If you pick up Final Fantasy VII right now and play it, it's still a good game, even though it's like shitty graphics. It's still a good game at its core. 4 CDs, like stuff to do all over the map. Like, just enjoy the game, people.
This is David, and welcome to our review for the demo of Forespoken.
What's up?
To be released on January 24th for the PlayStation 5 and PC. I've been hearing about this game for roughly a year now. I've seen videos and read articles about it, hearing all about its open world, its breathtaking graphics, and beautiful acrobatic combat based on parkour. But now I've had my chance to play that demo, and does it live up to all the hype? Or is it just some style over substance and some more flash in the pan? Well, come on with me and let's find out.
Good intro. Good intro.
Before I begin any game, I always like to fool around in the settings to see what's available, and I'm always on the lookout for that elusive easy mode.
That's funny.
In a game like this, where I know for a fact that I'm going to be absolutely terrible. But, much to my surprise, there was no difficulty selector. Instead, every little tiny thing can be modified to your liking.
That's cool.
If you want the combat to pause instead of just slow down while you're selecting your magic, have at it. If you want to be a dodge tank, go for it. But conversely, if you want the game to just automatically dodge for you, that option's available too. So the easy mode is definitely there. You just really have to fiddle around with all the settings and fine-tune it for your own needs. The demo allows you complete freedom to roam around one entire area with very few limitations. You have 5 main quests, followed by a boss fight. But interspersed with that, there's plenty of other smaller quests to do, treasures to find, statues with power-ups to pray at, or just hidden nooks and crannies to seek out, as well as some picturesque locations. So while I spent about an hour with the demo, I could still see somebody easily spending 2 or even 3 hours if you went out of your way
That should be
to do
Goku though.
and find everything. Combat is the main bread and butter here though, so let's go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah.
You have access to 2 schools of magic, fire and earth, and you can switch between them at will. For the most part though, I did stick to the fire magic, because the earth magic was all long ranged, and aiming and I don't really
I
get
could see
along
that.
with
I didn't want to say it.
I mean, as much as I would have loved to have just stayed out of harm's way and fire rocks at all my enemies, I couldn't aim at those bastards to save my life. They were running all over the screen, and eagles are diving at me left and right too. It was just so much.
Yeah.
So I quickly switched over to fire, which works at a much shorter range, and I just
Yo, you
burned
can't be that
down
bad.
my
Let's go.
path. You can have 6 different spells equipped at one time, 3 offensive and 3 defensive.
Sounds good.
And R2 casts the attack magic spell, while L2 casts the supportive spells. But it was still kind of odd.
It
You
is.
can also hold down the buttons to charge the spells, but even then, sometimes the game just kind of did whatever it wanted to, it seemed. Sometimes if I hit L2, it would summon swords to assist me. Other times I would get fiery ghouls that followed me around, and then sometimes if I was lucky, I would get this fiery circle of death surrounding me, blasting the crap out of everybody. I really don't know why I got certain spells at different times, but I was always glad for that ring of death. Otherwise, for the most part, you're just kind of mindlessly mashing R2, swinging around your fiery whip like a madwoman. My mindless button mashing got me through the demo, and I was having fun in the short time that I played, but I had to wonder, why the R2 button and not the X button? What's up with the funky controls with Square Enix titles lately? This was the same problem with Valkyrie Elysium. I was constantly hitting the shoulder buttons. I don't know about you, but my hand wears out much more whenever I'm hitting those shoulder buttons than whenever I'm hitting the face buttons. So it's just a really odd choice. Then, I didn't see any kind of HP indicator either.
Yeah, or MP.
I only knew that my health was getting low whenever Frey would whine about not being able to see anything. So, I don't know if I ever really got close to death. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, there are these 5 little stars and a number next to them on the screen, but the number constantly fluctuated, and the stars would go down even whenever I was just kind of running around outside of combat.
That's stamina.
So I'm not really sure what those indicated, and God forbid the game tells you anything, but hey, I didn't die, so I really can't complain.
Yeah, that's stamina.
Your equipment consists of beautiful Grecian cloaks and gorgeous bejeweled necklaces, which you can upgrade in camp with tons of components found all throughout the region. But most badass of all, her weapons are her nails. This badass bitch paints her nails to imbue her spells with different effects. I just love it. I mean,
I like it too.
hell hath no fury like a woman who's just broken a nail.
Girl.
You do not want to get on her bad side. Paint those nails blood red, then go beat up hordes of zombies. What could possibly be
This is
better?
kind of cool.
The menu is done in kind of a strange, almost optic lens sort of way.
Yeah.
It's concave, so it's difficult to read what's on screen because of that distortion. I am glad that there was a demo for this game, because I've been
What is
curious
this?
and kind of waffling back and forth over it. but the demo cemented my decision
Huge.
here. This is a good, beautiful game, and it can be a lot of fun, but that being said, I still know in my heart of hearts that this is not a game for me.
That's fine.
At the end of the day, it's just too Western, too frantic, and there's too much going on. There's no mini-map to help me get around, it's really hard to aim with any sort of magic, and believe me, if it wasn't for that auto-evasion, I'm sure I would have been spanked. So while I could find this to be fun in small doses, even at the end of the 1-hour demo, I was saying to myself, oh, thank God it's over. But then another quest popped up, and I was physically disappointed. I didn't want to play it anymore. I didn't want to run around from point A to point B just to fight those same mobs over and over and over again. My hand was tired from hitting R2 constantly, and I just wanted it to be done. It was just kind of very button mashy, kind of walking from here to there, and very flash in the pan, style over substance. I could see myself maybe getting it in the future for something like $15.
Damn.
But really, like I said, there's nothing inherently wrong with Forespoken. It's just not for me.
I like that.
Well, that's it for my review of the demo of
I like that. I
Forespoken.
like that. I like that.
What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments. And if you like this video and wanted to hear on the channel, please consider supporting me over on Patreon.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I feel like he likes JRPGs more than like action-based RPGs, which is fine. I'm kind of the same way. Man said 15. Yeah, for real, he did. This is a big guy. So let's see.
Everybody on the internet right now seems to hate Forespoken. Now,
It's 4
this
months
game
ago,
is
though.
a bit of a gigantic question mark because, as it stands, even though we have seen about 20 minutes of gameplay, we really don't know that much about it. It's this weird game that seems to be about a girl transported from New York into a Final Fantasy-esque universe, but it's one of those games where it's been delayed, it's been talked about, but we really don't know what we're getting. But they just released a new trailer that everybody agrees is the most cringe, terrible, controversial piece of trash ever. But
I don't like how cringe is being used for every single thing. Pretty soon, nothing's gonna be cringe because everything's gonna be cringe. You know what I mean?
I want to talk about why this trailer, which is only 30 seconds long, has managed to stir up a lot of conversation. What's up, gamers? Dreamcast Guy here. Hi, hope you're having a great day. If you could like this video and
We're not doing that.
let me just do a gigantic cringe warning. This is some truly peak awful conversation. If the game is actually spoken, if the dialogue is written like this, people are going to be hating this game. But
We don't live in
here it
the
is.
UK.
You can see this is a promoted tweet. Square Enix paid tens of thousands of dollars to promote this specific trailer to make sure that you saw it, so buckle up. Are you ready for a beautiful and cruel new land, twisted monsters, an array of magical abilities, and sentient jewelry?
But what if it's sentient? Like, I'm about to break this down. I'm going to go hard right now on this guy. What? So what? Final Fantasy, X2 was all about clothing. Granted, I don't know what the game really did in hindsight, but like it was all about clothing. You could do this job, that job, you could dress up. I never played it because of that. So what? If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. Let people do what they want with their game. Just don't play it.
All right, so these
You're
are the
wild
worst
for that.
jokes ever. Here we go.
So let me get
So
this
spell
straight.
effects are pretty good.
I'm somewhere that's not what I would call Earth. I'm seeing freaking dragons.
Freaking
Oh yeah, I'm
dragons?
talking to a cuff.
Oh gosh, like the spell effects look good.
Yeah, okay, that is something I do now. I do magic, kill jacked up beasts. I'll
Kill
probably
jacked
fly
up
next.
Nothing is wrong with what I just heard. That sounds like pretty much most of Marvel intros. Hey, I'm Spider-Man. I swing from buildings. Like, it's a monologue in your mind of what you're going through. It happens all the time. What's the problem with people? Here we go.
So obviously, the issue with this is that it's incredibly freaking poignant, ridiculous cringe. there is this style of writing that's becoming more popular, which is like self-aware, self-deprecating, like meta jokes. And honestly, it's very, very annoying. Now, a lot of Marvel movies do this, and I'm not specifically hating on them, but it's that type of thing where like you'll be fighting a gigantic killer of gods, and you got to be like, "Oh man, he's the god butcher. Hope he doesn't butcher any gods." Oh, they're doing this with video games now. Like, people keep making fun of it here. People saying it sounds like one of those bad CW shows. It sounds like it needs a
That is literally the Flash in every episode, in his mind talking to himself. That's how Flash starts, doesn't it? What show starts like that? Mm-hmm. Let's see. Do I want to get banned or not? I should answer that first. Well, like, if you look at the Flash intro, it's him talking to himself, I believe.
freaking laugh track. Now, here is such a great example. There's a ton of people. This tweet is being roasted into the freaking pavement. Literally, it's been trending now of people making fun of this. But right here, this is a great example, I feel like, which is a very serious game that manages to have extremely well-written humor in it, which is the Yakuza games. What if they used this style of cringe humor instead? Want to know my name? I'm Kazuma Kiryu, the Dragon of Dojima. Oh man, that sounded way cooler in my head, sorry. I'm always catching hands with the fiercest fighters in Japan. And uncovering underworld conspiracies and cut to Yakuza 2 baby sub-story. Yeah, that's something for me to tell my therapist. Bad humor can ruin good jokes. Like, that's kind of the problem with this, is that even if this
White
game
girls are
ends up playing
evolving.
well, everybody is making fun of the fact that this dialogue is freaking terrible. Now, I actually wanted to talk about this. A lot of people in the writing world refer to this style of dialogue as Whedon-esque because Joss Whedon sort of invented it. Like, if you're going to have Spider-Man fighting bad guys, I'm completely obsessed with Spider-Man. Spider-Man does make jokes, but Spider-Man also takes serious moments serious. If there is a nuclear bomb that's about to go off or there's some sort of terrible travesty, he's able to reflect and deal with the situation. It's not always just joke, joke, joke.
It was literally 30 seconds, though, of her talking about her new existence. It wasn't even like she was fighting a dragon and talking about how the dragon. I don't get this point.
Whedon-esque stuff will have a character actually die, and 30 seconds later, a character's like, guess we're going to have to mop that up. It ruins even good moments. The essential problem with Whedon-esque dialogue is that it has no respect for wonder, terror, or mystery. It's rolling its eyes at the most profound visions of ecstasy and horror that the universe has to offer. And this, in my opinion, completely nails the problem with dialogue like it seems Forespoken is going to have, is that imagine that you are a real person pulled into the Final Fantasy universe and you suddenly have powers and you're trying to save this far-off mystical land. Are you really going to be like, oh man, guess it's a hot day?
That didn't happen. You know how many games I've played that had this kind of humor in it? And I was just like, oh, okay, cool. My problem comes when they try and make a joke every 5 seconds. And it's like, okay, let me concentrate on what's going on. Because, like he said, Spider-Man, most of the time you fight in, Spider-Man is cracking jokes. So I don't get it.
While you're shooting fire? No. You're going to be like, all right, cool, let's deal with this.
Else, not everybody's gonna do that. Everybody's different. You don't know what's going through somebody's head. Somebody's gonna be like, I don't even want to be here, and they're not gonna fight anybody.
It's annoying how much it feels like they don't respect the world that they've made. Now, I actually wanted to show you something here, which is absolutely insane. Somebody decided to make a parody of this trailer using Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Now, this is 21 seconds. It's brilliance.
Here I am, doing everything that I can, holding on to what I freaking am, pretending I'm like some jacked up super. Yeah, okay, that's something I do now.
Yeah. Here
Not funny.
is the perfect example about why this stuff does not work. there needs to be some amount of seriousness. Good jokes can exist. I'm not saying I'm anti-humor. Obviously, I'm Mr. Yuck Yuck. I like to do funny voices or be Kermit the Frog. Like, I enjoy good jokes, but there is a time and a place where you need to catch your breath and realize what's actually going on. Now, let me just say this. There are funny Final Fantasy games. There are serious Final Fantasy games. I think there's great moments that have existed across the entire freaking catalog of Square Enix experiences. But my problem is that if you're going to try and mock it this much, it is at the detriment. Like, looking at Forespoken itself, the gameplay is dark. The gameplay, the graphics, the art style, it seems like this is going to be a very gritty, very cool, very flashy experience. It is going to, I mean, honestly, in my mind, it's going to undermine that if every time I am fighting a dragon, I'm like, oh no, it's a freaking dragon. I guess I'm still just stunned about this because there are a bunch of rumors that right now, that two separate things at once. Forespoken is apparently done. There are rumors that the game is finished, even though it hasn't officially gone gold. Apparently the development is pretty much feature complete. The game is done. The reason they didn't release it this year is because the rumor is they're trying to get out of the way of God of War Ragnarok. So this is their way of sort of like dodging that bullet. But additionally, it just feels like this is supposed to be a big headliner project that Square Enix wanted to pump possibly hundreds of millions of dollars into making something that is a completely new franchise, and they're going to ruin it with the goofiest of the goofiest talk. Like, don't make people talk like it's Sesame Street. Don't make people talk like they're background characters to Tony Stark's second henchman. I know that writing and directing styles like Taika Waititi are very popular right now, and I appreciate that humor, but having just tons of like, oh man, oh, I can't believe we're stopping the world, I'm Taika Waititi, oh man, oh, what are we gonna do? That kind of stuff wears thin when there is
I don't get how we come to this conclusion from a 30-second video.
an actual sense of scale and pressure and freaking intensity. You are screwing over your own project. I know it sounds like I'm being very, very revelly in this, but straight up, I think that this dialogue, if this is the way they talk in the entire game, it's going to flop. I am actually going to go ahead and put my foot down on that. If this is how they talk in the game, people are not going to buy it. Like, how am I supposed to care about a universe where the main character doesn't care? Like, if you've been transported here, if you're fighting these monsters and even you don't give a crap, I feel
Alright, this is not objective at all. I'm gonna let you guys listen to something and then let me know.
My name is Oliver Queen. For 5 years, I was stranded on an island with only one goal: survive.
Oliver Queen is alive.
So you see, you hear that?
Now I will fulfill my father's dying wish.
You can survive this.
To use the list of names he left me and bring down those who are poisoning my city. To do this, I must become someone else.
I must become something
I
else.
must become something.
So why should I care about this series? Why? It's you're gonna talk every episode. This is every single episode. Why should I care? It's literally the same thing. Do something else.
Yeah, okay, that is something I do now. I do magic, talk to sentient cuffs, kill jacked up beasts. You know what? I'll probably fly next.
I don't like the audio not syncing up. Well, we'll skip that.
Roughly 3 hours of time spent hands-on with Forespoken, I arrived in a fantastical new world, battled a dragon, and took part in a prison break. This all sounds like it should be very exciting, but in truth, so far Forespoken feels like a game getting in its own way. The latest action RPG from Square Enix definitely does display some potential, thanks to a promising combat system that could become excitingly nuanced over time, but its opening sections sadly often feel uninspired.
Uh-oh.
Junoon is part of Athia.
I get it. Like New York City versus New York State.
Exactly. I think.
The story is the age-old Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz tale of a stranger being transported to a magical land and, presumably, leaving as their saviour. Protagonist Frey Holland is an abrasive character who doesn't have much time for anyone or the fish-out-of-water scenario she finds herself in. I have seen hints at her softening though, which hopefully points in the direction of an endearing character arc. She's capably portrayed by Ella Balinska, despite being saddled with a rather flaky script of which every other word appears to be f***.
This cannot be real. A dragon? What the was that? Hey, the you calling monster? Make this let go!
Seriously, I must have played it over 100 times in my few hours, and
Oh no! What do you expect? You take a black girl out of New York, of course she'll be dropping up. I'm surprised she ain't dropping some N bombs out here.
whilst I'm no prude, it doesn't lend itself to creating a subtle or nuanced protagonist.
You say another word.
Okay. Wait. Oh no. This is worse than the friggin' jokes. This gonna turn a lot of people off from the game.
More painful were the conversations between Frey and her anthropomorphic bracelet companion, Cuff. While walking around with a charming Paul Bettany sound-alike on your wrist could easily be a pleasant experience, in Forespoken it comes across as less Jarvis and more jarring.
Can we just not talk?
Fine. Fine by me. Suit yourself. I love a bit of silence.
Further off-putting are the visuals of Forespoken, which certainly doesn't display the sort of graphical firepower you'd expect from a new-gen showcase, despite being on PS5 and PC exclusively. It just all feels quite barren and lifeless, an atmosphere especially highlighted in the city I spent a good chunk of my playtime in, a grey, anemic series of streets full of nondescript townfolk. It's also the location where I witnessed Forespoken commit its biggest crime so far, a frankly abysmal breed of auto-fail stealth mission that deserved to die with the PlayStation 2.
You are safe now. Thanks.
Once I made it through that particular nadir, however, Forespoken did continue to show more promise. Chapter 5 takes place in a wholly more interesting area of Athia, a red fiery land painted using similar brushstrokes to Elden Ring's Caelid. A vertically varied landscape with danger hiding at every layer, it's a place where my combat skills were fully tested alongside my magical parkour abilities. When it all clicks, darting across chasms and flipping over enemies can be a real delight. But for a game that places so much emphasis on these slick movement options, it can be frustratingly unreadable at times. Like so much of Forespoken, it feels like real fun is there to be had when it hits its stride, but it just trips itself up far too often in these early chapters. The final part of my hands-on was a big boss battle, which was easily among the highlights of my playthrough. Consisting of 2 difficult but varied phases, it constantly made me think on my feet and juggle all of my cooldowns and spells that I'd learned up until that point. The first section was an exciting fight against one powerful enemy and a group of soldiers that displayed genuinely smart battle design. I focused most of my firepower on the boss, saving my super useful tendril attack for the weaker enemies, which whipped vines around in a large area of effect and restored my health with every connection it made. This sort of clever encounter left me encouraged that Forespoken could throw up some inspired boss designs further down the road that will combine spectacle with challenge. While phase 2 of the fight did display some of that spectacle, I found it far less entertaining, and even bordering on annoying, as I was channeled into a narrow arena and asked to repeatedly avoid some pretty unreadable attacks. It also fell foul of one of Forespoken's visual calling cards, where the world's colour is drenched by a blue filter. It's meant as a representation for the break, the evil force that plagues this fantasy world, but just doesn't look very nice, and removes any sort of distinct identity away from a certain area. It also means you're missing out on some of the impressive creature designs. A massive dragon I met early on more often than not appeared to me as a giant winged silhouette.
That's not a good thing, is it?
Probably not.
I'm
here
fairly
and there.
convinced that there definitely is enjoyment to be found in Forespoken, but its early chapters don't seem like the place to consistently find it. The magical combat promises to develop and become more and more interesting over time, but whether that will be enough to overcome an uninspired script and the world it aims to bring alive remains to be seen. When we have so many open world action RPGs at our fingertips these days, Forespoken really needs to set itself apart. Despite leaving a less than impressive first impression, I am hopeful, if not confident, that it can. For more on
A better objective. So we had 2 objective reviews. Why you have to be perm? That shit better get freezed over time like a real black woman Sarah would. I mean, there's some black women here that grow like that though. Remember, we still living in that era where we gotta be, even though it's a black girl in Square Enix, it still gotta be looking, more Eurocentric than Afrocentric, unfortunately. But we'll see, because, she has no access to that anymore, right? So we're hearing this, but we don't know how long the time here is compared to time in, the real world. But I get what you're saying, though. Bishop actually allowed us to, do a little bit of character customization. I understand that games have um specific characters that's supposed to look a certain way, but I've always felt like, why can't I just add my own spin to these characters? Like, let's say Cloud, for example. I prefer how Jack looks to Cloud because Jack has black hair. So if I can make Cloud's hair like red or purple or something, give me these like slight changes. I know it's probably hard, but like I've always wanted to do more with the characters. Like, I don't know, change how they look, give them different hair, change how the swords look, something small like that for me.